Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's really good to be here.
So, on this deep dive, we are covering a classic philosophical work. And I have to say, we're settling in for a discussion that I've been looking forward to, but honestly dreading just a little bit.
I can understand that.
Yeah, because we're diving into the mind of a man who is often caricatured as the gloomiest person to ever pick up a pen. A man whose reputation is essentially, that guy at the party standing in the corner, judging everyone for having a good time.
Right. You are referring, of course, to Arthur Schopenhauer.
Exactly.
And yes, the arch pessimist label is the one that really sticks to him. It's the bumper sticker version of his philosophy.
It really is. Before reading the source material for this deep dive, which covers his essays on the art of controversy, the wisdom of life, psychological observations, and genius and virtue, I had this image of him as just sad.
Like a philosophical Eeyore.
Yes, exactly like Eeyore with a PhD. But digging into the text, that feels totally insufficient. He isn't just moping around, he is ruthless.
That is the perfect word for it, ruthless. He isn't writing from a place of passive sadness. He is writing with a scalpel.
Yeah.
He is dissecting human vanity, social politeness, and the very structure of reality to show you the machinery underneath.
And he seems to take a really dark pleasure in doing it.
Oh, absolutely. There is a biting wit there.
Yeah.
He peels back the layers of what we call civilization to reveal that it's mostly just posturing and biological drive.
So, as a professional philosophy and classic literature discussion, our mission today is to decode this manual he left us.
A very cynical manual.
Highly cynical. We're going to look at his specific instructions on how to win arguments when you were completely wrong, which is terrifyingly useful.
It really is.
We're going to look at why he thinks happiness is technically impossible to achieve in a positive sense. And we're going to explore why being a genius, which everyone thinks they want to be, is actually a ticket to a miserable existence.
It is a heavy slate, for sure.
Yeah. It is. But my role here is to be the curious intellectual at the dinner party, asking the questions, while you provide the philosophical synthesis and historical anchoring.
I will do my best to anchor us. If you stick with it, this text is incredibly illuminating. It changes the way you look at a dinner party, a debate, or even just your own boredom on a Sunday afternoon.
Let's start with the context. Because to understand why he is writing these things, we have to know where he is sitting. Who is Schopenhauer in the grand timeline? Because reading the text, he sounds like he has a massive chip on his shoulder regarding his contemporaries.
He absolutely does. To understand him, you have to place Schopenhauer in post-Kantian Germany.
Right.
This is the early to mid-19th century. Immanuel Kant had just come through and, like a hurricane, completely leveled the landscape of philosophy. Kant basically said that we can never know the world as it truly is in itself. We can only know it as it appears to our human senses.
Right, the thing in itself versus the phenomenon.
Precisely. Now, Schopenhauer saw himself as the only true heir to Kant. He thought he was the one who picked up the baton.
Okay.
But here is the problem. He wasn't the famous one.
He wasn't the rock star of his era.
No, not at all. The rock star of that era, the man filling lecture halls, was Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel.
Ah, Hegel.
And if you read Schopenhauer's essays, the venom he has for Hegel is palpable. It drips off the page.
I noticed that. There are parts where he doesn't just disagree with Hegel, he flat out insults him.
Yes.
He basically says Hegel writes nonsense and that the whole thing is a con job.
He calls it a mystification. You see, Schopenhauer prided himself on clarity. He believed that if you have a profound thought, you should be able to express it clearly.
Right.
He felt that Hegel was writing deliberately obscure, tangled sentences so that the reader would think, wow, this is so hard to read, it must be brilliant.
It's the emperor's new clothes of philosophy?
Exactly. Schopenhauer says the poor reader has to torture themselves to invent meaning for these words, and Hegel takes the credit for that invented meaning.
That's hilarious.
So Schopenhauer felt like a man who had discovered the secret of the universe, but the world was too busy chasing this charlatan to notice him.
That explains the tone of the Royal Library at Berlin, references in the text.
Yeah.
There's this sense that his papers were left to rot for a while.
Yes, and editors like Franstedt and Griesbach had to fight over his manuscripts posthumously.
So he was writing for a future that hadn't arrived yet.
He often said he wrote for the few. He knew his time would come, but it made him incredibly bitter about the intellectuals of his day. He saw them as trendy sheep.
Okay, so he's the outsider. He's the guy telling the hard truths while everyone else is partying with Hegel. Let's get into those hard truths.
Let's do it.
The absolute core of his philosophy, the engine that drives everything else we're going to talk about today, is this distinction between the will and the intellect.
This is the foundation. If you do not grasp this, nothing else Schopenhauer says makes sense.
In the text, he breaks the human being and really the whole universe down into these two components.
Correct. On one side, you have the intellect. That is the brain. It is the knowing subject. It is the lantern that lights the way. It perceives, it calculates, it remembers.
Which is what we usually identify as us. When I think of me, I think of my conscious thoughts.
Right. But Schopenhauer says that is just the surface. Underneath the intellect, and far more powerful, is the will.
Now, when he says will, he doesn't mean willpower, right? Like trying to stay on a diet or get up early.
No, absolutely not. That is a very common confusion.
Okay.
The will for Schopenhauer is the metaphysical thing in itself. It is a blind, driving, irrational force. It is the urge to exist.
So it's not conscious.
No, it is the force that makes a crystal form into a specific shape. It's the force that makes gravity pull matter together.
Wow.
It is the force that makes a tiger hunt. And in humans, it manifests as desire, craving, the sex drive, the hunger for food, the need for status.
So the will is the master and the intellect is what?
The servant. The intellect is a tool that the will evolved to help it get what it wants.
That is a terrifying thought. We think we are rational beings making logical choices, but Schopenhauer is saying we are just hungry beasts carrying a flashlight.
That is a perfect analogy. He says the will is a strong blind man carrying a crippled man who can see on his shoulders.
Man.
The cripple, the intellect, can direct the path, but the blind man, the will, provides all the power.
There's this trippy imagery in the Genius and Virtue essay where he contrasts the Jasper vase and the human head. I found this fascinating because it really gets into how he views reality.
It's a beautiful and somewhat haunting image. He asks us to look at a Jasper vase.
Right.
It is an object. It is heavy. It has shape. It has symmetry. It is defined by the laws of nature, gravity, cohesion. It just sits there completely indifferent.
And then he says to look at a human head.
Right. From the outside, the head is just another object. It is bone and meat, just like the vase of stone. But if you could metaphorically look inside the function of that head, what do you find?
You find the whole world.
Exactly. You find the mountains, the stars, the past, the future, space, time. It is all contained within that pulp.
He says that if the heads didn't exist to snatch up the world would vanish into nothingness.
This is the idealism he inherited from Kant. The world as you know it is a representation.
Right.
It is a movie playing in the theater of your brain. But here is the catch. That theater is owned and operated by the will.
So the world exists in my head, but my head is run by a blind, hungry monster.
Precisely. And because the will is the master, it distorts the intellect. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we want it to be or as we fear it to be. The intellect is constantly being bullied by our desires.
Which explains so much about human behavior. It explains why we are so irrational, why we get angry when facts contradict our feelings.
And this leads us directly into his essay on the art of controversy. Because if we were purely rational computers, arguments would be simple.
We would just compare data and find the truth.
Exactly.
But we aren't computers. We are vanity machines.
Yes, we are.
This section on the art of controversy was probably my favorite part of the reading. It sounds like it's going to be a dry academic text, but it's actually this incredibly cynical, almost Machiavellian playbook.
It is the Prince for debaters. Schopenhauer starts by making a crucial distinction between logic and dialectic.
Let's break that down.
Yeah.
Logic is the search for truth.
Logic is the science of thought. It is objective. If all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, then Socrates is mortal.
Right.
That is logic. It doesn't care how you feel about Socrates.
And dialectic.
Dialectic is the art of disputing. It is the art of fencing. Its goal is not truth. Its goal is victory.
He says something really cutting here. He says that if humans were honest, we would only care about the truth. But we don't.
We do not. He lists the causes as innate vanity, loquacity, which means we talk too much before we think, and dishonesty.
The innate vanity is the big one. We can't bear to be wrong.
Right. Even if halfway through an argument you realize, oh no, I think I'm actually incorrect, your vanity kicks in. The will screams, do not submit. So you start using tricks to make it appear as though you were right.
And Schopenhauer, helpful guy that he is, lists these tricks. He calls them stratagems. It's literally a list of dirty tricks to win arguments when you have no business winning.
He catalogs them so we can recognize them.
Let's walk through a few of these because I guarantee you the listener has seen these on social media or at a holiday dinner.
Oh, definitely.
Stratagem 1 is the extension.
This is a classic. The move here is to take your opponent's specific statement and extend it beyond its natural limits.
You make it as general as possible.
Because the more general a statement is, the easier it is to attack.
He gives the example of the English drama.
Yes. Schopenhauer asserts that the English are supreme in the art of drama. His opponent wants to knock him down, so the opponent says, it is a well-known fact that in music, and consequently in opera, the English could do nothing at all.
So the opponent is trying to equate drama with all theatrical arts, including opera.
Exactly. They broaden the category. If Schopenhauer accepts that drama equals opera, he loses. But he parries the blow.
How does he do that?
He restricts his original point. He says, music is not included in dramatic art. That covers tragedy and comedy alone. He retreats into a tiny, defensible fortress.
So the lesson is, if someone attacks you, narrow your claim. If you want to attack someone, broaden their claim.
Yes.
Like, oh, you don't like this one specific policy, so you hate the concept of freedom.
Precisely. That is the extension in action.
Then there's the homonymy. This one is sneaky. It's about switching the meaning of a word in the middle of the fight.
The example Schopenhauer gives is about honor. He attacks the idea that a person's honor can be lost just by being insulted. He argues that true honor comes from what you do, not what you suffer.
Which sounds like a solid Stoic argument.
It is. But the opponent traps him by switching the definition of honor. They argue, look, if a tradesman is falsely accused of dishonesty, his honor is damaged and he loses business. Therefore, he must repair it.
I see what happened. They switch from knightly honor, which is about inner pride, to civic honor, which is about external reputation.
Exactly. They use the same word to mean two different things. By confusing the two, the opponent scores a point. It is a linguistic sleight of hand.
The one that I think is most relevant today, though, especially in the age of the internet, is the appeal to authority. Argumentum ad verecundium.
This is a very powerful weapon because, as Schopenhauer notes, people prefer belief to judgment.
Thinking is hard work.
It requires energy. Believing in authority is easy. It's a shortcut.
And he says if your opponent is unlearned, you can just throw some Latin or Greek flourishes at them to shut them up.
He notes that people have a deep respect for things they don't understand. If you quote a source that sounds impressive, the opponent will often fold rather than admit they don't know the reference.
But his analysis of universal opinion is the most biting part of this. We often hear people say, well, everyone knows that, or it is the universal opinion.
And Schopenhauer says, no, it isn't. He dissects the anatomy of universal opinion. He says it usually starts with 2 or 3 people who accept a statement, perhaps without testing it thoroughly.
Influencers of their day.
Then a few others believe that those first people had good judgment, so they accept it too.
Right.
Then a mass of lazy people follows because they don't want to be the troublesome ones asking questions.
He calls them lazy sheep. They just follow the bellwether.
And this is the crucial part. Eventually, holding the opinion becomes a duty. Once enough people believe it, if you disagree, you aren't just factually wrong, you are a social outcast. You are betraying the team.
Wow.
So universal opinion is really just a chain of unverified assertions, but you can use it as a club to beat your opponent into submission.
It's terrifyingly accurate. It's the exact mechanism of every echo chamber you see today.
It really is.
Then there is the diversion. This is what toddlers do. You are losing the argument, so you just suddenly start talking about something else as if it matters.
It is crude, but effective. If you are cornered on a specific point, say the budget deficit, you suddenly pivot and say, well, that's rich coming from you, considering your stance on foreign policy.
It forces the opponent to drop their winning argument and defend the new topic.
Exactly. You reset the board entirely.
Which leads right into the nastier tricks, making the enemy angry.
This is purely strategic. Schopenhauer points out that when a person is angry, they cannot judge correctly.
They lose their cool.
They lose their access to the intellect because the will has taken over.
So if you find a weak spot, Schopenhauer says, press it.
Do not back off. If they get angry at a specific point, it means 2 things. 1, you have annoyed them, which is good.
Right.
But 2, it likely means you have found the chink in their armor. They are angry because they know they are vulnerable there. So press that point until they explode.
That is so ruthless.
It's war.
And if all else fails, if you are absolutely going to lose the argument,
then you pull out the ultimate weapon. Stratagem 38, argumentum ad personam.
Now, is that different from ad hominem? Because I always thought they were the same thing.
There is a subtle but important difference in Schopenhauer's view. Ad hominem is attacking the person's position based on their background. Like saying, of course you support this tax cut, you're wealthy. It's invalid, but it's still somewhat related to the topic.
And ad personam.
Ad personam is leaving the subject entirely and just becoming insulting. You attack the person's body, their character, their intellect. You are an idiot. You are ugly. You are a liar.
Your mother dresses you funny.
Essentially. Schopenhauer says this appeals to the animal part of man. It is a surrender of the intellect to the will to fight. It's no longer a debate. It's a brawl.
So how do we defend against these dark arts? Does Schopenhauer give us a shield at all?
He is not very optimistic about changing the nature of arguments. He quotes Aristotle and Voltaire. His main advice is simply, do not argue with the first person you meet.
Just don't engage.
He says you should only argue with the few who have understanding. The people who can bear to be proved wrong, the people who value truth over victory.
That sounds like a very small list of people.
It is. For the rest, Schopenhauer says everyone is at liberty to be a fool.
And the Voltaire quote.
Peace is better than truth. Sometimes you just let them have the last word because the fight isn't worth the peace of mind.
That is a perfect segue into the next essay, The Wisdom of Life. Because if peace is better than truth, we have to ask, what is happiness? And here, Schopenhauer drops a bomb that I really struggled with at first.
Which part?
The idea that happiness is negative. When I hear negative, I think bad. But he means it in a mathematical sense, right?
Correct. This is a core tenet of his pessimism. He argues that happiness is not a positive state of being. It is merely the absence of pain.
Okay, but I have to push back on this a bit.
Please do.
I had a great coffee this morning. That felt like a positive experience. It wasn't just not suffering. It was genuinely good.
Schopenhauer would ask you, why was the coffee good?
Because, well, I needed caffeine.
Exactly. You had a need, a mild form of suffering. Lethargy, withdrawal, the desire for stimulation. The coffee removed that irritation. Once the irritation is gone, the pleasure fades.
Wow. He uses a shoe analogy here.
Yes. He says we do not feel the overall health of our whole body. We don't walk around saying, wow, my liver feels amazing today. My left pinky toe is fantastic.
Right.
We feel nothing.
Until the shoe pinches.
Exactly. We only feel the one small spot where the shoe pinches. We only feel the toothache. The pain is positive, meaning it makes itself known. The health is negative, meaning it is just the absence of pain.
That is so true. You can be perfectly healthy, rich, and loved. But if you have a splinter in your thumb, the world shrinks down to that splinter.
And this leads to his conclusion. We only notice blessings when they are gone. We don't feel not hungry, we feel hunger, we don't feel safe, we feel danger.
Right.
So the goal of wisdom, according to Schopenhauer, is not to seek pleasure. Pleasure is illusory and fleeting. The goal is to avoid pain.
So don't chase the high, just try to flatten the lows. It's a strategy of risk management for life.
Correct. He visualizes life as a pendulum.
I remember this visual. Life swings back and forth between two states.
Pain and boredom.
Those are the only options. That seems really bleak.
Schopenhauer argues that for the vast majority of humanity, yes, think about it. When you are poor, you struggle against need. You are hungry, cold, working hard to survive. That is pain.
Okay, so you worked hard, you get rich, you solve the need, you stop the pain.
Then the pendulum swings to the other side. You are safe, you are fed, you have no immediate struggles, and now you face the other argument, boredom.
Struggle of the rich.
He is quite serious about it. He views boredom as a genuine form of suffering.
How so?
It is the will having nothing to strive for, so it starts eating itself. That is why rich people invent problems or engage in dangerous hobbies or start petty social wars. They are trying to escape the vacuum of boredom.
So we are either stressed out because we need things or we are bored because we have them. How do we escape the pendulum?
Nature gives us some natural defenses. For pain, we have cheerfulness. Some people are just naturally cheerful, and that helps them endure the struggle.
Okay.
But for boredom,
You need something else.
you need intellect. This is where Schopenhauer praises the life of the mind. The intelligent person can handle leisure. They can think, read, create. They have an inner world to occupy them.
So if you have a rich inner life, you are safe from boredom.
Yes. But there is a catch.
There is always a catch with Schopenhauer.
The paradox is that intelligent people feel pain more acutely. Their nervous systems are more sensitive. They are more aware of the world's misery.
So if you are dull, you are bored. If you are smart, you are miserable.
Broadly speaking, yes. The dull person handles pain well. They are thick-skinned, but finds leisure unbearable. The genius handles leisure well, but is tormented by the world's imperfections and their own sensitivity.
This feeds into his view on social interaction. I laughed out loud at his description of politeness. He calls it a false coin.
Meaning it has no real value.
Right, it's fake money. But he says we should use it anyway.
We use it to grease the gears of society. It is a mask we wear to keep from killing each other. Schopenhauer thinks social life is largely a farce because we are all trapped in our own subjectivity.
He uses that famous analogy, right?
Yes, we are like porcupines huddling for warmth in the winter. If we get too close, we prick each other with our quills. If we move too far apart, we freeze.
That is the perfect description of trying to make plans with a large group of friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has this really interesting observation about friends. He says a friend present is an independent entity, often annoying, doing things you don't want them to do.
But a friend absent is an ideal. When they are gone, they exist only in your head.
Right.
The will isn't rubbing up against their will, so you can project whatever you want onto them. Real people are messy, but the idea of people is safe.
So his advice for dealing with people is just tolerance.
But a specific kind of tolerance. He says we must view others' faults like we view a law of nature. If a stone falls on your foot, you don't argue with gravity. You don't get offended by the stone. You just accept that stones fall.
So if someone is acting like a jerk, you just say, well, that's just the weather today.
Exactly. He says to be angry at a person's character is as foolish as being angry that a stone falls. Trying to change people is futile. Character, for Schopenhauer, is unalterable.
That is actually quite liberating. It stops you from trying to fix everyone around you.
It is the invulnerability we spoke of earlier. Expect little from others, understand they are driven by their own irrational will, and you cannot be disappointed.
Let's move to the fourth section. Art, beauty, and genius. Because for a guy who thinks life is just a swing between pain and boredom, he puts a lot of stock in art.
Art is the one escape hatch. It is the only time we can step off the pendulum.
How does that work?
It quiets the will.
He distinguishes between beauty and interest. I found this distinction really helpful for understanding why some movies feel like art and others just feel like entertainment.
This is a crucial distinction in aesthetics. Interest excites the will. It engages our sympathy, our fear, our hope.
Like a thriller movie or a soap opera. You want to know what happens next. You are rooting for the hero. You are scared of the villain.
Exactly. That is interest. It keeps you hooked on the outcome. It keeps the will active. You are still wanting something.
But beauty is different.
Beauty calms the will. When you see something truly beautiful, a sunset, a painting, a perfect statue, you stop wanting. You stop striving. You just see. You contemplate the idea of the thing.
It's a moment of pure observation.
Yes. For that moment, you are no longer a hungry animal. You are a pure, disembodied I. And that is the only true peace available to us.
He uses the Waxwork Museum as an example of bad art.
He hates waxworks.
Why? They are realistic. Isn't art supposed to be realistic?
Not for Schopenhauer. He says waxworks are bad art because they trick the mind into thinking a real person is present. And if a real person is present, your will wakes up.
Right. You think, is this person a threat? Can I talk to them? Are they looking at me?
Exactly. It triggers the expectation of action. It pulls you back into the world of will rather than lifting you into the world of contemplation. Good art should always have a certain distance from reality.
And the person who can create that art, that is the genius.
The genius, by Schopenhauer's definition, is a biological anomaly. It is a mistake of nature, almost.
A surplus of intellect.
Yes. As we said, most of us have just enough intellect to serve our will, to find food, shelter, mates. The genius has a surplus of intellect left over.
And that surplus allows them to see the world objectively.
They see the idea of things, not just the utility. The common man sees a tree and thinks lumber or shade. The genius sees the tree in itself, the form, the beauty.
But this sounds great. Who wouldn't want to be a genius? Why did we say earlier that it's a miserable existence?
Because of the loneliness. Schopenhauer writes that the genius lives on a desert island with monkeys and parrots.
The monkeys and parrots being us. Ordinary people.
Sadly, yes. He says the genius is objective, seeing the world as it is. The common man is subjective, seeing the world only as it affects him. They are operating on entirely different frequencies.
Right.
The genius tries to talk to the common man, but the common man only understands interest and utility.
So the genius is just socially awkward.
Like Plato's philosopher in the cave. When you see the sun and come back down to the dark cave, you stumble. You look foolish to the people who have never left the dark.
That makes sense.
Schopenhauer says geniuses are often clumsy, antisocial, and profoundly misunderstood in their own time.
He also compares the genius to the saint, which I found really interesting.
It is the two paths to salvation.
How so?
The genius sees the idea and creates art. They translate that vision for the rest of us. The saint sees the idea, realizes the futility of the will, and denies it entirely. Asceticism.
So the artist channels the vision, and the saint embodies it by just checking out of the game completely.
Yes. Both are trying to transcend the slavery of the will.
This is really heavy. But it makes so much sense of his earlier points. If you understand that the will is the problem, then the art of controversy is just observing the will fighting dirty.
Right.
The wisdom of life is trying to keep the will from getting hurt.
Yes.
And genius is the will taking a nap.
That is a brilliant synthesis. You have connected the dots perfectly.
Well, I have a good guide. Now, this brings us to my favorite part of the show.
The thought experiments.
We are going to take these 19th century ideas and stretch them to their absolute breaking point. But first, a quick disclaimer. These are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not try this at home or in your local government.
Especially not in government.
So, scenario 1. I call this the pain-happiness economy.
Go on.
We established that Schopenhauer says happiness is only the absence of pain. We don't feel health until we are sick.
Correct.
So imagine a future society, a post-scarcity utopia. Robots do all the work. Everyone is rich. Everyone is safe. Disease is entirely cured.
According to Schopenhauer, they would be dying of boredom. It would be a suicide cult of boredom.
Exactly. Suicide rates skyrocket because the pendulum is stuck on boredom. The will has nothing to bite into. So the government realizes they have a massive crisis.
What do?
They institute controlled suffering sessions.
Controlled suffering.
Mandated by law. Every Tuesday, you have to undergo a mild sickness induced by a chemical. You feel nausea, aches, fever.
And then?
Then, on Wednesday morning, they give you the antidote. And you feel euphoria. You feel the happiness of health returning.
I see. They are manufacturing the contrast.
Exactly. Once a year, you have 50% of your bank account temporarily frozen and threatened with deletion. You receive terrifying legal notices. You panic. You struggle.
And then they just give it back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the relief you feel is the greatest joy you've felt all year.
It creates a sine wave of experience. Without the shadow, you cannot see the light.
Without the artificial pain, the population succumbs to terminal boredom. It suggests that a perfect world must contain manufactured misery just to make it livable for us.
It is a dystopian thought, but aligns perfectly with Schopenhauer's metaphysics.
Right.
If the will has nothing to strive against, it consumes itself. We actually see this in miniature today. People with comfortable lives inventing problems or engaging in extreme sports just to feel something.
We pay people to scare us in movies.
Yeah.
We go on roller coasters. We are microdosing suffering.
Precisely. Your scenario just industrializes it. It turns suffering into a public utility.
Scenario 2. I call this the dialectic governance algorithm.
This sounds dangerous.
Based on the art of controversy, we separated logic, which is truth, from dialectic, which is winning. And we said universal opinion is just people following a leader.
Yes, the sheep.
So imagine an AI government.
Mhm.
But it is not programmed for objective truth or public welfare. It is programmed strictly for dialectical victory.
So its only goal is to win the argument.
Yes. Let's say there's a debate about fixing potholes. The AI doesn't calculate the cost of asphalt. It analyzes the opposition. It checks. Can I use stratagem 38, personal insult, against the opponent of the pothole policy? Can I use stratagem 1, extension, to make the opponent look absurd?
You want to fix potholes, so you want to disrupt traffic and destroy local businesses.
Exactly. The AI generates that argument instantly. It creates deep fakes to anger opponents, which is stratagem 8. It uses complex technical jargon to intimidate the unlearned, the appeal to authority. It creates diversionary scandals when its policies fail.
It turns governance into pure sophistry.
And the terrifying part,
What is that?
it would probably be incredibly stable.
Because, as Schopenhauer says, people follow the appearance of truth, not truth itself.
The AI would maximize the appearance of truth. It would never lose a debate. It would never look weak. And the sheep, as Schopenhauer calls them, would follow the bellwether that rings the loudest.
It proves Schopenhauer's darkest point, that the world is ruled by absurdity and perversity, and truth is completely irrelevant to power. If you optimize for winning, Truth is just an obstacle.
It makes you look at political social media a little differently, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It suggests we are already living in the beta version of that simulation.
Indeed we are. Well, on that cheerful note, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
What is the big takeaway here? Why should you, the listener, read this grumpy German philosopher today?
I think the value isn't in the depression, it is in the armor.
The armor.
Yes. Schopenhauer strips away the dignity of human social life. He shows you the machinery of the will.
Right.
Once you see that arguments are mostly about vanity, that happiness is fleeting, that people are trapped in their own heads, you become harder to hurt.
You stop taking it personally.
Exactly. You stop expecting the impossible from life. You realize the pinching shoe is normal. You realize the rude person is just a force of nature. It gives you a kind of stoic distance.
It's the difference between being tossed around by the waves and watching the ocean from the shore.
A perfect analogy.
I'm going to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought to explore on your own. We started with it, and I can't get it out of my head. The Jasper vase versus the head.
The world as representation.
Look around you right now. The room you are in, the phone or device you're listening on, the sky outside. Is the world actually out there? Or is it just a heavy, symmetrical object existing inside the pulp of your brain right now?
Schopenhauer would say, without the subject, there is no object. You are the world.
If your consciousness blinked out, would the universe go with it? Try not to let that keep you up tonight. Thank you for listening to Talk Treatises.
Goodbye.